We are ready. President Margell, we are ready.
Wonderful. Good evening. It is 5 p.m. and we are starting today's meeting. Welcome. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a policy work session. We will start with roll call of the board members to take attendance. I will call each board member's name, and if present, they will indicate their presence by saying present. Director Gregory.
Present.
Director Song.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
Vice President Cook.
Present.
And I am present. I will start our meeting off by calling on Dr. Behringer. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm going to start with calling on Superintendent Vela. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you, President Margell. First of all, welcome to our board and our viewers. I'd like to first thank everyone again for the work we've done this year. I can't say it enough, but we've done a lot of work around policy, and I think we shared the number a while back, and I'm sure Pam's going to catch us up on that, but I just wanted to thank the board for their due diligence in the work of updating and making sure our policies are up to date. We continue the work, as you know, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hawley to get us going for the evening. Ms. Hawley.
Thank you. Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Team KSD. We have completed so far this year 53 policies, so we have a ton more to do. Some of our policies are outdated by 27 years, but we're really making headway, and I think we've done a great job. The board has done a wonderful job of moving these through and reviewing them with care and concern. I'm going to flip through the PowerPoint quickly, and then we'll go to the individual slides as normal. We talk about policy classifications every board meeting so that the public and any attendees are aware of the differences between the classifications. Our first policy will be 3224, student dress. It is a first reading of a policy we already have. 50/50 contracts, this is a fourth reading. 5222, job sharing staff members. This is policy new to KSD. Policy 6106, allowable costs for federal programs. This is a first reading of a new policy to KSD. Any policies moving forward will appear on I believe the May 28th agenda, and our next policy work session is June 11th. So let's start with the first one, and it's 3224, student dress. It was called student dress and appearance. That title has changed. Meadow Ridge was one of the last schools to have uniforms, and that changed a few years ago. The list policy is discretionary. The board had been asked that this policy be revisited after receiving a letter from a student about dress code inequities between schools. So here is the policy in red line. And are there any questions?
I had one. I didn't know if it would fall under this one or if it'd fall under a different policy, but just something that's been reoccurring in upcoming themes of how technology and wearables are starting to become integrated and more popularized and commercialized. Where would we put policies around glasses that are prescription that are also smart glasses?
Great question.
And then would that also overlap with our phone policy? But then because it is a medically, I guess, prescribed apparel, do we put that under a different technology policy, or would we put this into dress code as well?
Director Song, I believe that could be added in the future to the technology use policy. because in that policy, it talks about students using personal devices, and that would constitute a personal device. And so I think there's some further investigation to do around what it means, is there any impact to our infrastructure, and what that might look like moving forward. It hasn't been an issue that I'm aware of yet, but that it would probably live in that one
There's
versus.
only been one case so far that's reported, and it's with the new Meta Ray-Ban glasses because they're a prescription. And so this student, their school doesn't allow phones, they do the locker thing, but the glasses are still connected.
Is that another school district?
It's another state.
Oh, okay, another state. Okay.
So that just got me thinking about, would this overlap with clothing and apparel?
Yeah.
So, okay, but it also
Yeah.
makes sense for tech.
Yes, something
Yeah.
to look into.
I think I heard prescription, is that right?
Yes, because they're prescriptions of
So
medical.
that's another angle that would take it in another direction, a different
Yeah.
policy, but definitely technology and possibly others.
Okay, but the reason why I thought apparel was because sunglasses are considered apparel. Yeah. But if they're prescription smart sunglasses, how do we navigate this? So
Yeah.
maybe something to put on to a future conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the red line changes of our policy?
I didn't have any questions specifically about the policy, but I think Director Song did bring up something, and I know that there's a comment that anything that is of religious, where that is exempt from this policy is, and I think that this goes to kind of broader than just smart glasses, but anything medically necessary. I think about like maybe headphones that certain students wear.
Dr. Kim, do you think that would also be technology, headphones?
It sounds like prescription glasses and headphones needed for noise canceling would be around medical accommodations. And so I think that would be worth looking into if that's something that we want to ensure is in place around medical accommodation policies, typically around 504 accommodation plans.
Okay. Do we want to have anything under the exempt policies, just adding the word "and medical"?
President Margell, I think the overarching umbrella to this policy is around if you look at the first sentence, preserving beneficial learning environment and assuring safety and well-being. If we look at that umbrella and student dress versus medical, as Dr. Kim mentioned, for 504s and prescription, that's why I asked Director Song, that definitely, that's a 504 accommodation. We have no choice there. There are other forms of technology that may come out in the future as well. And I think the technology area and those areas are the appropriate place rather than this policy, which would be my recommendation to the board to consider.
I had one more thing, but
I'm
oh,
comfortable with us not having it in this policy as long as we have a commitment to making sure that, and it sounds like we're going to anyway, looking at it somewhere within our policies.
Yes, absolutely.
I had one more question. So the way that this is written, and this is something that's newer to me too. I've also had some conversation with some other mental health providers, and with IEPs and 504s where there's accommodations for anxiety, depression, trauma. I'm starting to see people write medically advocating letters from therapists saying that, those like oversized hoodies are now recommended by individual clinicians to help students cope and regulate their anxiety and their emotions. Is there any way we could put in languages here that might add protections for those with disabilities or accommodations? Or is this even the right space for that? Because the language right now says it's up to, where is it? May be regulated when in the judgment of school administrators. And so if they're not aware that the student has that accommodation, because it's not typical, right? Are there protections in place for students with disabilities?
Director Song, I appreciate the question. I think that this related to prescription glasses or religious relations, that we should take a look at those policies to ensure those are in place. If an issue were to come up around student dress and someone was trying to govern that around this policy, then we could pull out that medical accommodation policy to ensure that students have rights that live in their medical accommodation plan. So
Okay.
I've made note that we should take a look at the medical accommodation plan and then also take another look at the personal technology devices to revisit to make sure that those are addressed.
Thank you.
So there will be protections, of course, if it's in their medical accommodation, but it probably wouldn't live in this space specifically.
Yeah, just because it's not really considered medical, just like the difference between a service dog and an emotional support animal. Like an emotional support animal is not a medical prescription. Similarly with to some of the recommendations that a clinician might make about what type of weighted garments would support a student. And so that language just seems to not exist in any of these policies that I'm aware of. And so I guess clarity around where would that go?
Yeah, there is one place, and that is the individual health plan. We have an individual health plan that definitely would offer that protection. And the health plan isn't specifically just for prescriptions. You can move toward a medical 504 under a health plan. But the health plan is there in order for communication between the schools and the parents on any types of, for example, medications. Some medications are not prescribed. They're over the counter. So that's one, I think it's more where the protection is in the event they may be seeing a physician with that type of a quote prescription or suggestion to try. That
Okay.
Individual health plan.
Yeah, as long as there's spaces where this exists, that I would just ask. Thank
Absolutely,
you
no,
guys.
thank you for the question.
Yeah, that's it for me.
We're ready to move on, President Margell?
Yes, and can I just remind people to make sure that their speakers are turned on? The last little bit was really hard to hear.
Sorry,
think
I
they
was
just-
leaning back in my chair.
Okay, so we'll move that one forward. And now we're on to 50/50 contracts. This is the one we have had. This will be our fourth reading. If you give me just a minute, I'll make it a little bigger here. So what I want to point out about the change in this, and if you give me a minute to adjust this so you can see it with no markup. Under D, there were questions about the consultant language in there. And the board had asked this to come back for another reading. The language in D has been changed to clarify that this only deals with personnel. This is under the 5,000 series, it's the personnel series. It has nothing to do with contracts that are through the business office. So we want to make sure to clear this up, that this is only about our third-party contracted employees. It has nothing to do with contracts per se. So I think the language revision in this should clear that up. I'm hoping that works for the board. I think it's much clearer now. And thank you to HR for helping with, and finance for helping with that language to make it more clear that this is definitely a personnel policy.
Yeah, this looks great to me. I think from the last conversation, my only request was to put in those legal references, and I see those in here, so thank you.
Lots of legal references now.
I
Yep.
didn't realize there were
they're
so
all in
many.
Yep, we've got a ton.
But
All
I
for
do
you.
appreciate the addition, thank you.
Any questions on this one, or the language was cleared up as far as retire, rehire as well? There were questions on that, and that was fixed. Any questions?
I have no concerns.
Move it forward? Great,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, on to 5222. This is job sharing staff members. This is an essential policy, but it is new to KSD. And this, the WASDA put in an update, a recent update that requires employees to develop a written plan in conjunction with their supervisor's approval. And although we didn't have this policy before, I wanted to point out that that language is new for WASDA in this policy. And it's pretty straightforward.
I wanted to clarify, we have had job sharing positions in the past, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And having been a principal with job share partners, what you're seeing here is usually what happens.
Right.
In terms of communication and that kind of thing, so.
So this is a new policy, because we haven't had one that's governed them before? It was at the discretion of the principal or the school?
Yes, in that it still needed to meet the requirements for HR in terms of
Yes,
hiring,
yeah.
in terms of contractual obligations with CBAs, those kinds of things.
Union rules and all that?
Correct.
Okay.
As far as
Okay.
for board, it's a policy then that gives the superintendent opportunity to implement it through procedure.
And make it consistent also, because,
Correct.
because before it could be, even though HR is involved and principal can make it can be tweaked. Is that correct, what happened in the past?
Correct. It's, Director Gregory, it is contractual language, even though it's a new policy.
Okay.
It is in the contract, the KEA contract.
Yes.
And we follow that when it comes across HR's desk.
Okay.
We follow the
That's what
language
I
in the
wanted to clarify.
contract.
We are following the contract language
Yes.
already.
Yes.
This is just to make sure that we have a policy that backs that up.
That is correct.
Okay. That clears that up for me. Thank you.
I had two questions. One is, can I just get a brief, like 3-sentence explanation of 5021 for the cross-reference? On just what that means?
Oh, and Jamie, if you would like to go ahead, but this is just saying that contractual language trumps policy.
Ah, okay. Yeah. And then the other part was, is there anything that's gonna, that's in here that's gonna impact things like FTEs? Like, what do we do in situations if we do job sharing and then one person for some reason has to leave or, dip out last minute, and now we're not fulfilling those FTE requirements? What's the response there?
In the KEA contract, it is specific of deadlines to opt out of a job share if one of the principal or either of the employees who are in the job share want to opt out. And we typically, our job shares are on a year-to-year leave of absence, so they're a 1.0, but they're taking a 0.5 leave to do that job share, so we don't end up with 2.5 basic ed teachers at an elementary school. That's what kind of helps us cover those odd FTEs.
Okay, so I guess what happens if, like, say something happens in that teacher is like halfway through the year and they leave? Who is is there a liability to KSD if that happens? Since technically, like during that phase, we're not fulfilling those FTEs, or is there like a MOU in there that says like if these contingencies were to occur, then we'll do our best to fill those?
We, mid-year, if somebody looks to leave their contract, we would hold until filled, so we would look for a replacement before we release that individual.
Got it.
Thank you.
President Margell, we've had a little glitch, been asked to potentially pause, and I'll look over at Nate. We're good, sorry.
I heard,
Sorry,
okay, yeah, I heard it just beeping in the background, but I heard clearly.
very good, I think we're good, thank you. We've got the all clear.
Good to move forward?
I have nothing else.
I have nothing else.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're on to the last one. It's 6106. This is allowable costs for federal programs. This is also an essential policy that we have not had before that we're implementing now. And I just want to point out to the board that we have been playing with this last paragraph. Executive Director Raul Parangal wanted to make sure that it was exactly correct. So I'd like to make sure that that is pointed out for your review because it has been changed since it went into your policy folder. And President Margell, if you need me to read it to you, call it out.
Is it different than what was posted in our work session folder?
It is. It's been updated twice today.
Today.
did it?
Yeah, it's different.
Oh,
We'll go ahead and read it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great then.
If a federal disaster is declared or the state declares a state of emergency, the district may continue to pay the compensation of employees who are paid with federal grant funds using the federal funds, despite the employee's inability to work due to the extraordinary circumstances consistent with the district's use of all funding sources to pay its employees. And this came about because of COVID. When employees were still being paid,
Right.
there was question of whether federal funds, even though the federal programs were not being implemented, if the federal funds could still be used for payment. And this clarifies that they can, given these certain constricted requirements.
Do we need any language in here clarifying what happens if the federal funds are either exhausted or removed?
Right.
We could add additional language on it, but I don't think at this point it's necessary because if there's no federal funds, there would be no program.
Yeah, and I got that too. I just didn't know if like we had to add any further clarification or if there's any room for people to contest or challenge. Because yeah, it does say paid with the federal grants using the federal funds, but
Yeah, I think I agree with Mr. Paramore that at this point we don't. But I think I understand what you're, given the, where we are with federal, we've been, this incoming year, 25, 26, we don't see any changes, and beyond, it's only a reduction of certain ones. We don't know how much that will be. But I think the spirit of this one is more around, if we have an FTE, so correct me if I'm wrong, team, FTE that we've hired under federal funding, and they fit this criteria, we still continue to fund them with those federal funds. I think that's the spirit of this language. If there weren't any funds, we would have to come to the board with different recommendations around reductions in that. So I think right now we'd be good.
okay, yeah, again, it makes total sense. I'm just all for redundancies, especially when there's any opportunities or windows for people to challenge.
Any other questions?
None from me.
None for me as well.
None for me.
Good to move it forward then?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. That was the end. That was a 24-minute policy work session. Don't get too excited. It's not going to happen
Wonderful.
again. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
I think getting.
Well, it is 5:24, and we are adjourned from our policy work session. We will resume again at 6:30 for our regular meeting. We look forward to seeing everybody back then.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Good evening. It is 6:31, and we are calling our regular meeting to order. We will take roll call of the board again to check for attendance. If you are here, please indicate your presence by saying present. Director Gregory.
Present.
Director Song.
Present?
Director Clark.
Present.
Vice President Cook.
Here.
And I am present. If you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in this board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of a board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Whether made verbally in person, verbally on video, or written, comments are limited to a total of one per person per regular board meeting. One additional comment per person may be submitted for a public hearing topic if there is a public hearing on the agenda. All forms of public comment are subject to Chapter 4256 RCW Public Records Act. The public may comment at regular board meetings in a manner authorized by state law. All comments must adhere to Policy 1420 and Procedure 1420P. If you wish to make a comment to the board, comment forms are available for completion prior to the meeting and must be turned in no later than the beginning of the legislative report. No forms will be accepted once this report has begun. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments will be heard after the agenda review. Students will be the first to speak on any topic during the student voice portion of the agenda, which takes place immediately following this opening. General public comments from non-students will be heard during preliminary communication from the audience. Any remaining comments, whether from students or non-students, will be heard at specific agenda items and during the final communication from the audience. Student comments will be heard first on any topic. Please state your first and last name prior to beginning your testimony. Abuse of public comments personally directed toward the board, staff, or students will not be tolerated. The use of specific names or personally identifiable information of board, staff, or students is not allowed. Board members or KSD staff members may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when not adhering to Procedure 1420P. All comments, whether verbal or written, must adhere to the standards of civility as defined in Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. If you're seated in overflow room, there's a brief delay in the live stream audio. We will allow extra time for you to make your way to the board room after your name is called. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide them directly to Safety Services staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. Director Gregory, will you read our land acknowledgement?
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you very much. We now move to our agenda review. Superintendent Vela, are there any changes to the agenda?
President Margell, there are no changes to the agenda.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second?
A motion's been made and seconded. Now, we are open for comment, discussion. Seeing as none, a motion's been made to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. We now move on to our comment section.
President Margell, there are no student online comments or written comments. I'll ask to see if there are any comments for students. There are no
Thank
comments
you.
for students.
Great. Well, not great. I would have loved to have comments, but. Recognition. We move on to our Asian Pacific Heritage Month, read to us by Director Song.
Kent School District Proclamation for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Whereas Congress passed a law in May 1990 to designate the month of May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, calling on the people of the United States, especially the educational community, to observe the month with appropriate ceremonies, programs, and activities. And whereas Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have distinguished themselves in the arts, literature, and sports and have made contributions in science, medicine, and technology that enrich our nation. And whereas Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have lived and worked in Washington State for over 150 years and have contributed to the rich cultural heritage of this state. And whereas the diverse Asian Pacific Islander American population in Washington State numbers more than 674,000 and represent more than 11 Asian and 7 Pacific Island nations. And whereas Asian Pacific American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to educate the public on the role of Asian and Pacific Islanders have played in American history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaims the month of May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, signed this 14th day of May, 2025, by the Sitting Board of Directors and Secretary to the Board, Superintendent Israel Vela.
Thank you very much, Director Song. We now have a presentation about our 2025-2026 budget update. Superintendent Vela.
Thank you, President Margell. As you know, we've spent time this year updating our board with not only our budget landscape, but also keeping you posted of a 5-year forecast throughout the school year. This is one of that sequence that we will be coming to you with in terms of presentation, looking at a final budget adoption for our last meeting in June, I believe. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Raul Perenguo, our Executive Director of Finance, to begin our presentation this evening.
President Margell, member of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry, good evening. Tonight, we're going to be providing you with an update based on the recent change or recent approval of the budget from the state. And next to me is Ms. Tyler, Director of Finance, or of Budget and Finance, and will be helping me and assisting me in presenting tonight and also answering any questions you might have. So we're just gonna jump right into it. Would like to provide you with the state budget update. So on April 27, the legislature concluded the 105-day session and approved the operating budget, which is commonly known as SB 5167. And almost immediately the next day, it was submitted to the governor for signature. And the governor has 20 days, excluding Sunday, to decide on the budget, which would be on May 20th. He, however, quoted that he is not rushing into it. And so what it means to us is that the final budget is not going to be known until May 20th or after. So just some of the details of the operating budget. It's $77.9 billion statewide. It's an increase of $5.9 billion from the last cycle. And the makeup of those increases are mainly maintenance level, which is $4.9 billion. It's only about $1 billion that are what is considered as discretionary policy level or some new initiatives. And going down into the K-12 education budget, our portion of the state budget is about $33.7 billion. It's an increase of $2.5 billion, and just the same, maintenance level is about $2.1 billion and about $0.4 billion for the discretionary policy level. It is good to know that our K-12 education share of the budget dropped from 43.4 to 43.2. And if you recall, the governor promised in his campaign that he's going to make it 50%. As you could see right here, that the share of K-12 is going the wrong direction. More details on the K-12 education. The IPD is going to be 2.5%. Special education is getting about $309.6 million statewide. And those are mainly coming from the excess cost multipliers, which is about 192.9. So simply, there are multiple tier in the way special education is funded, and those tier system is now eliminated, and it would be a single rate. The elimination of the 16% enrollment cap is about 81.7 million. Currently, our district is about 13%, so we're not gaining any funding on the second bullet. The reduction of threshold for safety net, 35 million. And so, as you could imagine, when the threshold drops, more districts are now able to submit application. And so we're unclear whether we're going to be able to gain some funding out of the safety net just because it's going to be more competitive. In addition to the 309.6 million, the state is also providing 12.4 million, which is under SB 5253, which is to increase services for students with disabilities up to age 22. Currently, it's up to age 21. And so that is on the special ed. That's the first of the three buckets. The second bucket is the MSOP. The state is providing 78.9 million. And the details of that are on this chart, where it shows that on per K-12 student, we'll be getting $45.99, but that $45.99 is a required maintenance. Whether there is an additional money in MSOP or not, the state shall provide $45.99 per student, and then the enhancement for grades 9-12 is about $6.12. The result of the effort for the three buckets is the new funding, which is $35.27 and $4.69. And therefore, the total per K-12 is $81.26 and $10.81 for the enhancement. You might hear some news that the state is providing $81.26 on a per K-12 basis. Well, the truth of the matter is they're only giving us $35.27 because the $45.99 is actually a required maintenance. On the third bucket, which is the transportation funding, there is no adjustments. And as when you hear that the state is not providing additional money, it means budget cuts for us because the cost of doing business is increasing, but the state is not providing us additional funding. As a matter of fact, I think the gas tax is going to be increased by 6 cents to 0.554 per gallon, plus a 2% inflationary increase every year. Now, the diesel tax is going to be increasing by 3 cents per gallon and 3 cents yearly thereafter. And most of our fleet are using diesel. And so not only that there is no additional funding, the cost of doing business is increasing. There are miscellaneous grants that are actually reduced by the states, 138.1 million. And there is a long list of them. What we picked up as the direct impact to KSD is the loss of the outdoor education funding, which is approximately $800,000. So we provided you with a link to all the list of the things that have changed in the state budget. And so when you open the link, you will be able to see all those details in it. More on the K-12 education budget. So here we provided you with all the building blocks when we developed the budget. We provided you with the 24-25 rates and what is the 25-26 numbers. The first three lines, I'd like to provide you with a little bit more context into it, which is what we commonly known as the over formula. And so if you look at the first chart, you see the basic ed underfunding due to the rate differential. What it means is that for every certificated staff, for every classified staff and certificated administrator, this is the amount of funding that we get, $78,000 for certificated staff, classified is $56,000, and certificated administrator is $116,000. That is the amount that we're getting from the state. What we're paying our employees is the next column, which is for certificated staff. We average about $106,000 per FTE, and for classified is $78,000, certificate administrator $181,000. And so the last column shows us the gap, the difference, in how much the state is funding us per FTE and how much we are paying. If you calculate the value of those underfunding based on the total FTE that the state funded us, it's 63.6 million shortfall in funding. Now, there's the second portion of the over formula, which is the FTE, the number of FTE that the state funds us. And so if you look at this second chart, basic education gets funded by the state 1,750 FTE. We hired and pay 1,840 FTE, which is 90 FTE more than what the state is funding. It's because we had to address the needs of our students. And as a result of that, the underfunding is about 10 million. So overall, the over formula is a total of 73.6 million overall between those two categories. Now, on the federal funding update, we received some update from the federal, and it's a 15.3% reduction in education. We tried to look for some of the elements that really directly impact the district, and what we found was the Title I and the streamlining of the K-12 programs, which is a reduction of about 4.5 billion. And of note would be to maintain the Title I funding. Yes, the president says he will maintain the Title I funds. But he will combine 18 competitive and formula grant programs to a new 2 billion formula grant. We do not have any details of what they look like. We just speculate that those might be the Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Title VI might be included in it. But we don't have a lot of details. He quoted in his letter, this is the new approach allows states and districts to focus on the core subjects, math, reading, science, and history, without the distractions of DEI and weaponization from the previous administration. So I just put that in because, as you are aware, that the state of Washington is currently investigated as it relates to DEI. We're still waiting for the outcome of that. And if you heard the news about the state of Maine, the Attorney General specifically said they will lose federal funding if you don't comply with the requirement. And so it's very uncertain in terms of the federal funding, and later on when I show you the forecast, I'll tell you a little bit more about the contingency that is involved. And then special education funding, again, no new funding. Again, when you hear this, you know that this is going to be a budget cut because the cost of doing business naturally increases. And then in the state of Washington, just to, just a perception here, state of Washington received about 28% of its revenue from the federal funds. And so if you could just imagine if the state of Washington loses federal funds, that would be 28% that the state will not have. I wonder what the impact of that into all the agencies, including K-12. In terms of our enrollment, you've seen this chart before. It's still the same chart. But I just would like to note here that this enrollment projection was prepared prior to the election. There are many things that happened since the election. We've heard many executive orders, including executive orders towards immigration. We believe that we would like to believe that these numbers will stick. But there's also a possibility that these numbers could potentially go down. And so that means that our funding would go down. And that means that we need to figure out how to be able to rectify potential losses in revenue if that were to happen. We tried to tally what the fiscal impact of the state budget to KSD revenue in terms of millions. And you would see here, these are the major categories of the district revenue coming from the state. And so the first line is the general apportionment, which is primarily driven by enrollment. And here, our funding for 24-25 is about 278.4 million. 25-26 is 285.8 million. And the next column shows what is the impact of the state budget, and it's 10.3 million. But because of the enrollment drop and the caseload drop, we are losing about 2.9 million, and therefore the net change is about 7.4 $7.4 million. Now, in special education, you notice this big increase, and it's an increase of about from 54.9 million to 78.4 million. And so due to the state budget, because of the elimination of the tier system, we're getting about 13.1 million on that. We're not getting any money because of the 16% threshold, but we're getting some money because of the elimination of the tier system. And then the next column shows 10.4 million in additional funding because of the caseload, the increase in caseload. And we're finding that the projection for next year for special education is growing rapidly. And so we have to account for that, the number of special education students. And therefore, between the two categories, we are increasing our revenue by 23.5 million, or about 42.7%. Now, I made a special note right here that as the number of student population grows, our expenditure are expected to also grow exponentially. And so, if you look at this number, this is very, very close to the amount of deficit that we have on special ed. This will not fix the problem because our expenditures are going to grow as well. So when we received the budget, we also updated our forecast. And so these are the assumptions that you've seen before. But there's a major difference between the last time I presented this to now, particularly the IPD. In 25-26, we estimated that at the last presentation at about 1.9%, and then 2.1% in 26-27, 1.9% and 1.9%. What you see here tonight is the forecast from the state. This is the number that they provided us as their forecast for the next 4 years. And so when we included that in our calculation, including all the elements of these assumptions, what you see here is the updated forecast. Now, immediately you will notice here the 28-29, if you remember the last version of this, it has improved quite a bit. 28-29 used to be 22 million deficit. And today you're seeing almost 13 million deficit. So it has gotten better. And the main reason for that is because of that IPD change. When the IPD changed in year one, that has in effect in perpetuity across. And then in year two, again, in perpetuity. So the accumulation of those increase in IPD in the fourth year brings a positive impact to our deficit. So we are still experiencing deficit even though the IPD is improving. And you will notice that the ending fund balance is improving also. In the last version, this is a negative ending fund balance and also a negative 0.3%. So we're not out of the woods yet. We still have problem because if we don't do anything, this deficit will continue on and it will drain our fund balance very, very quickly. And so as a result of that, I've shown you this before in terms of some assumptions. If we continue our trajectory of making budget balancing solutions of 3 million every year, between 3 to 5 million, we will be able to reach not only a 7.9% ending fund balance in 28-29, but we will also be able to achieve a balanced budget. A $710,000 of deficit is almost like a balanced budget, almost zero, because many things could happen from now until 4 years from now. When we get close to less than $1 million in deficit, that is almost close to balance. And so if we're able to maintain this, then we'll be in better shape. The last time we presented this, we mentioned to you a consideration to increase our ending fund balance to 10%, and I think this is actually leading into that 10%. The only disclaimer that I would say is that this does not include any potential federal funding cuts. And so this is assuming that we're going to continue to receive 100% of our federal funds. And if I could go back into this right here, you notice a couple of bargaining units negotiations that are going to be open in the next 2 years. And so depending on the outcome of those labor negotiations, it will potentially change the outcome of our forecast. And then this also assume a flat enrollment, which could potentially drop. We also tallied all the board budget priorities that was collected on April 2nd, and this is not in any specific order of priority. Right now, our executive cabinet is currently evaluating every single one of this and trying to determine if there's any potential fiscal impact and what the implementation strategy might look like. And so we will continue to provide more information about the board budget priority in our future meeting, but this is currently being reviewed by the executive cabinet. In terms of next steps, May 20th, we're hoping that the governor would make a decision and sign the budget. Based on today's briefing from OSPI, we heard that he's not going to do line item veto, but rather a section veto. And that could be a big section that, may mean a lot of money, and so we don't know how that's going to look like. We'll just continue to follow the news from the state. On June 11, we will present to you a work session number 2, which will provide you with an estimated revenue for 25-26 and the estimated expenditures. Currently, all the things that I presented to you are the building blocks on how to be able to develop the budget. Our Human Resources Department is all tallying all our FTE. In finance, we're calculating all the revenues. And in between, we will put them all together, present them to you on June 11, and also what would be the estimated ending fund balance. On the same night, a public hearing will be held. Give the opportunity for the public to be able to speak about the budget. And on June 25th, we're going to come back to you and provide a little bit more highlight of if there's anything that has changed from June 11, and then we will ask you for the adoption of the budget on the 25th. And that concludes our presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just have one. Looking at, it sounds sad, but I'm actually happy to see where these numbers are in comparison to some of the other figures that we've seen just being published statewide. But just for reference, these figures that are being forecasted compared to our neighboring districts similar in size, where would you say that we fall in comparison in terms of, I guess, how far are we up in preparedness for some of these budget cuts?
Personally, I feel like we're, in terms of preparedness, I think we're way ahead of our neighboring districts, just because I sit in what we call the large district roundtable, and whenever we compare notes, I've never seen a district who does what we do in terms of forecasting. They look at the current year, perhaps look at the next year, but they never go all the way to 4 or 5 years. And this is the reason why there are quite a number of districts who are on binding conditions, because they make decisions based on the current +1. Now, if you make decisions based on current +4, then you have a better view what's going to happen 4 years from now and what is the impact of your decision today, particularly in the labor negotiation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I had one question. And this might be a question for Superintendent Vela. Are we planning to take on the costs of the 5th grade camp ourselves, given that the state is no longer going to be subsidizing that?
No, thank you for the question, Vice President Cook. I'm going to give you a statement and then come back to hopefully some kind of an answer. As you know, things are still in flux because we still don't know what the governor will sign. given that, I did share with my leadership just last week that we need to be thinking from a mindset of abundance versus a mindset of scarcity, meaning that even with that, and in fact, I use that example, Vice President Cook, that right now that's in the legislature where they were going to cut at that point, that we need to be thinking about, so what might we be able to do? What might we be able to do to still build upon some of the experiences that we had, as you know, very positive experiences. What might we be able to do to still work with our current provider to perhaps be innovative on what we can provide? As an example, a half day, a full day, maybe on site, maybe we could do 2 schools at once. That is an example of an abundance mindset. At the same time, I'm also asking my team, now the answer is, we know we spent roughly $75,000 on top
Yes.
of what the 800,000. You never pay fully with what you get, because we wanted to make sure every student had experience. And so I'm asking the team, what might we be able to still do? As we look at our forecast, as we look at the actual dollars, because we still see that as a priority in terms of an experience and activities and the learning that takes place. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, do you know if there are other, I guess, grant opportunities outside of necessarily the state directly or something like that? I don't know if we've looked at any of that.
I think my team constantly looks for opportunities. I think I remember, Mr. Perenguao, I'm not going to take your thunder here. You talk about what are ways that we can approach deficits. We have, revenues, expenditures, and.
Well,
yeah, can
we
you
first
talk
would
about
be
that?
efficiencies. There are a significant amount of efficiencies that we could explore, we could implement, that some of them are not necessarily generating any new money, but becomes more efficient. But others could potentially gain some additional money. I mean, I got lists of things that I would like to work on. Some of them are harder, some of them are easier, but every $35,000, $50,000, $60,000 that you could save by renegotiating contracts and things like that could mean a lot. And so that is on the efficiency side, but there's also the opportunity to increase our revenues. And again, many other areas that we could look at. I have at least about 5 or 6 things that we will be looking at in terms of revenue enhancement. Who knows how much we're gonna generate from that. Then there is also one thing about some of the practices that we do in how we buy products, the means of payment, the discounts that we get from our vendors. All in all, if you do all of that, we could accumulate savings or discounts or rebates that could add to a big number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation and the agenda for the remainder of the year around the budget.
And if I may, just very quickly, President Margell, I wanted to thank Mr. Perenguao, Tyler, and our whole finance team. They've done great work over the last 4 years at least, if not longer, with making sure we are fiscally solvent at this point. And as I've shared before, and I appreciated Director Song's question about, so how are we in terms of other districts, that we're in a very good position to continue to offer, maybe not the same way as Vice President Cook, as I mentioned, that we've offered program, but we are in much better shape. So I just wanted to call that out with our team and thank them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where's the comments? We are now to our section for preliminary comments from the audience, and
There are no comments from the audience.
okay. We now move to the superintendent report. Superintendent Vela?
Thank you, President Margell, members of the board. I want to start this evening with sharing some shout-outs, but some important information for our community to hear. The first is tomorrow, Thursday, May 15th, will be our focus around Help Us Grow Stronger Together, and share your voice in a family or staff through a climate survey. As you probably know, we've taken these throughout, but this really helps us set our focus on hearing from our community. So that'll be tomorrow. We believe that in the power of one KSD, one class, one team, one community, that means listening, learning, and growing together to create the best possible learning environment for every student. So look for staff and family climate survey links in your email starting tomorrow. The survey, by the way, ends on May 30th, so a good couple of weeks. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend the Blue Dress event, which is a fundraiser offered by St. Vincent de Paul. Centro Nandu is one of our community-based partners, as you know, and it was really great that our communication director, Ms. Sisley, and I, when we walked in, the 4 greeters were the mentors from our 4 high schools. And it was the coolest thing, and so we got some pictures with them, and that was exciting. So that was a great thing to be able to attend that fundraiser. Specifically, St. Vincent de Paul was actually sharing a community service award to a former KSD employee and longtime educator, Mr. Roger Baron. Specifically, I know that you may not know this name. Mr. Baron spent time not only as a teacher, as a principal, we'll give you the date, quite a long time ago. And when he retired from OSPI is where I got a chance to meet him. He came and worked with our community even before Centro Nandu existed. And then when Centro Nandu came on and partnered, he would do the ESOL classes with our Spanish-speaking communities that would come in. And so he was honored last night, and I had the opportunity to present him with the award. And so I wanted to acknowledge him as a one-time employee. I think it's important to note that he's done great work throughout the years serving this community. So, Mr. Roger Burrown, thank you. I also wanted to get a shout out to our Kent Meridian Sports Medicine team. Wait till you hear this. Congratulations to the students who placed second at state competition, and individual winners include Rafid Mazban, state champion in strength and conditioning; Addison Darrow, state champion in first aid and CPR. That's her second consecutive win. And Josue Perez Peña placed third in anatomy. If you've ever had the opportunity to go to one of these where they're doing some of the show and tell of this, it's so cool to see. So congratulations to all of our KM Sports Medicine team on their achievements. One other achievement for our KM staff, Dr. Marissa Windmill. She's a teacher at KM. She is the recipient and winner of the National Education Association Mary Hatwood Fertel Award. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the release that was sent to us. Quote, former NEA president Mary Hatwood Fertel is an iconic advocate who gained equal opportunity and access for young women and girls in education and society in general. As a beneficiary of Fertel's work, noted Washington State-based educator Dr. Marissa Windmill is more than worthy of the award that bears her name as she strives to create future female icons. Dr. Windmill is one of the nation's leading figures in advancing academic opportunity for young women. For over 30 years, she's served as a visionary educator who's helped implement and carry out curricula that puts a focus on ensuring teen girls are never denied the chance to reach their full potential. So congratulations to Dr. Windmill and this prestigious award. And I'd like to invite our board, I'm not sure when it is, I think it's June, early June. She's hosting another one of her storybook nights that she has a lot of her students share their stories. So I'd love for you to join me if you're able. The Washington State School Recognition Program also is alive and well each year. The Washington State School Recognition Program highlights schools that demonstrate exceptional progress in key areas of student success. For the 23-24 school year, only 16% of schools received this recognition. Schools are recognized in 3 categories: closing gaps, growth, and achievement. 3 of our schools were honored for their work and dedication to student growth in one or more racial or ethnic groups. They are Daniel Elementary, Meridian Elementary, Panther Lake Elementary. This recognition is a huge honor, one that takes a dedicated team of educators, administrators, and support staff to achieve. And of course, let's not forget our students who show up every day to learn and grow. Congratulations, Daniel, Meridian, and Panther Lake Elementary Schools. I recently viewed a video of beautiful art created by the winners of the Black Lives Matter art contest hosted by the Kent Educators of Color Network. I was moved by these amazing works of art and the creativity and talent of our students. Please take a moment to visit the Kent Educators of Color Network YouTube channel to view the video and see the beautiful creations made by our amazing KSD students. Last week, we celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week. I want to take a moment to personally thank each of our incredible teachers for the passion, care, and unwavering dedication they bring to classrooms across our district, teaching and inspiring more than 25,000 students every single day. They are the foundation of our mission, and their impact reaches far beyond the classroom. As part of our One KSD, our teachers' commitment to our shared vision and core values of learning, equity, and excellence is what drives our district forward. Together, we will continue moving forward to support each and every student, ensuring they are seen, valued, and empowered to succeed. I've spoken often this year about our financial challenges, and we continue working on budget balancing solutions through operational efficiencies, revenues enhancements, and spending reductions, as you've heard today. Despite these ongoing hurdles, I encourage us to maintain an abundance mindset, as I shared earlier today, and seek innovative ways to deliver the high-quality education and activities our students deserve. As One KSD, we are stronger together by staying united, focused, and creative. We will persevere and succeed for our students, our schools, and our community. And one last thing, thank you to our board members who joined me last night at our last superintendent's, our Community Connect Superintendent's Chat. I appreciated you attending, and thank you very much. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Vela. We now are closing our public comments. Seeing nobody rush towards the box, we move to our legislative report. Director Clark.
Well, I'm depressed that Finance Director Paragon completely took my 30-minute presentation. And so I'll just briefly comment on 2 things. The one thing that he had up there, but he didn't mention, which I appreciate, but the state did, in fact, finally reestablish the stipends for national board certification, and I felt that was critical. And while it's not a huge sum of money, it's about a long-term commitment, and I applaud that. Unfortunately, I don't have quite the positive feeling of course, he took his information from OSPI, and I struggle with that on occasion. So I'll just make this comment, okay? The fact is, federal money will be the swing point this year. And I am not optimistic on that. Well, I hope I'm wrong, and I'll have more to say if I'm correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Clark. We now move to our discussion and approval. Item 8.01. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Move to approve 801.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion. I get the privilege of reading it tonight. Ridgewood Elementary, from the PTA, got $3,100 for field trips expenses for all grades. Kent Meridian High School, from Northwest Canine Sniffers, $7,000 donated for the ASB. Sunrise Elementary got $2,889.07 from the PTA for the Sunrise Library. Lake Young's Elementary School, from the PTA, received many different funds. $1,800 for kindergarten trip to Point Defiance Zoo, always a fun day. $735 to the Museum of Flight, fantastic. $1,346.40 to the fourth grade field trip to the Washington State History Museum. $1,168.80 to the second grade field trip to Lincoln Park in Seattle. $897.30 for fifth grade classroom supplies. $529.49 to the SPED class fidgets, flexible seating, and other supplies, and $1,000 for library books for students. Carriage Crest Elementary, from the Carriage Crest PTSA, $6,000 to support student classroom activity enrichment. Thank you very much. For East Hill Elementary School, from the East Hill PTA, $738.77 for fourth and fifth grade field trip to Benaroya Hall. Kent Ridge High School, from the Kent Ridge Chatelaine Boosters, got $1,890 for the charter bus expenses to the state competition. And the Kent Ridge PTA, $2,500 to support class of 2025 senior barbecue activities. Last but certainly not least, Sawyer Woods Elementary, from their third grade parents, received $593.50 to the third grade field trip to the Point Defiance Zoo. Altogether, over $32,000 just this month in donations. Thank you very much from the support of our parents, our PTA, and our community. Seeing no other comments, a motion has been made to approve and second for item 8.01, gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. I believe that there's some items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda.
Yes, I would like to pull 9.07, 9.09, 9.11, and 9.12.
Just to make sure I heard those, 9.07, 9.09, 9.11, 9.12.
Yes.
Are there any other items? Right.
I
Is
move,
there,
oh, sorry.
is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the consent agenda, items 9.01 through 9.15, accepting 9.07, 9.09, 9.11, and 9.12.
Second.
A motion's been made to, and seconded for approval of items of the consent agenda, 9.01 through 9.15, with exception of the items 9.07, 9.09, 9.11, and 9.12. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as none, a motion is on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.07 transportation school bus purchase orders.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 9.07, transportation school bus purchase orders. We are now open for discussion.
I had a couple questions on this one. I don't know if anyone else does first.
No, you can go first.
Okay.
You pulled it, so you can go
Hold
first.
it, you can go first.
That's fine. Superintendent Vella, would it be possible to bring up someone to answer some of the questions that I might have on this?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennison.
Hi there. Thanks for answering some of my questions here. The first one that I had is, I noticed that we are not including AC on the buses that we are purchasing. We're purchasing 8 buses. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay, and 4 of them are for special needs, and the other 4 are for general education, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is there, is it just not possible for us to afford that at this time? I know we're in a budget crisis and whatnot, but I know it's been a concern from parents and whatnot about that issue, and I think especially with our special needs children and them possibly needing a little bit more care than normal.
Okay. Well, thank you for your question. Just want to address the board. Thank you, President Margell, directors of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. Air conditioning is a considerable cost, and so when we have purchased new buses, we have typically not included air conditioning in that bid process. Looking into it in the past, it's probably $6,000 to $10,000 to add air conditioning to cool an entire bus. The special ed buses are a little bit shorter than a general ed bus, so that is something that we could go back and ask for a revised quote. The funds in the Transportation Vehicle Fund could probably absorb that right now, if that's something that we wanted to add.
With that, is it possible, well, first off, do we have any special needs buses currently that have AC or no?
We have some micro buses that are the smallest style that have air conditioning for the driver in the dash. And that was like a standard feature for that style of bus. But we don't have any currently that cool the entire bus and the passenger area.
Maybe if, I don't know if this is possible at this point in the process or what have you, but even if we could look at, one or two buses that we had in that case, in the instance that we have a student that is medically fragile that needs, to have a cooled bus so that they can make it to school and home. Because I think that there likely are times when parents decide to keep their kids home because they're concerned about that heat. And I would hate for us to not be able to accommodate for that, even if it's only on a piecemeal sort of setup. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Yeah, we would have to go back for a revised quote and bring it back to the board to do that.
If I may, I think what I hear you saying is, so tell me if I'm not, that the board, Vice President Cook, you're looking at can we begin looking into, in our future purchases of buses, inclusion of air conditioning? I think what might be something to consider is that we put together for you a budget expenditure with buses, and we could break them down into smaller buses because the different ones are going to be a different amount of cost.
Yeah.
So I could have my team do that piece. I think that would be something good for the board to take a look at. And what we could do is then come back to you in an open session for you to take a look at those costs so that you can see what that's going to cost for our future forecasting, and then look at making a decision moving forward as a board.
Yeah, when I took a look at the costing of it, I actually have it pulled up here, just because I was curious how much it actually cost, and it is pretty expensive. The special education buses that we have would actually cost us an additional $15,657 per bus. So, I mean, I understand it's a very expensive option. I just also know that we have no option to add it later. And so that was my concern. If the rest of the board is concerned about that as well, it's something that we could possibly look at. Would we be able to change the purchase order and leave maybe one bus off and then make that determination at a later time? Or is that something that would kind of throw a wrench into everything you're working on?
I think that would be entirely up to the board as a whole. Right now, what's on here, the purchase of those buses, our main goal is the routing, replacing of buses. There are other priorities at this point. That's why I proposed that piece, because I think not only the cost, but also the usage. If you think about our own air conditioning, how often we use, I would just want the full board to have the full cost out before we purchase something, because I can give you kind of like 4 different, like the size of the different buses that can give you some cost out. Now we can really forecast out, what might the board want to have me do in terms of looking at certain kinds of fleets. And then future buses, I know Mr. Dennison has had wonderful presentations on what do our fleets look like now. He could also come back with, here's what we're looking at, what we're going to be replacing, and really get a plan in place. I think that would be what I would ask the board to consider.
So to comment on that, I like the idea. I think having the figures, and you answered the question I was going to ask about, in addition to just the purchase, the one-time purchase, what is the ongoing operating cost associated? I completely agree with Director Cook that we do need to look into this. My only hesitation with can we purchase at least one? My brain is going directly into equity issues of like, if we do have the one, like how are we gonna make that decision on which student, which route gets it? So it would be nice to see kind of those cost breakdowns, since it seems like there's some wiggle room here to exploring those, and then maybe coming back as a group to look at those figures.
Yep, definitely.
And just on that as well, if we were to kind of pause this and to give you time to do that, is that gonna, I don't want to hinder your ability to purchase the buses, have them ready for the beginning of the school year next year. Would that hinder your ability to do so?
Well, the buses are going to be delivered. It's going to take quite a while. They have to be built out. So we're not going to have the buses in time for the next school year. It's going to be mid-year next year. Right now, we're estimating early 2026. It just is, it comes down to the manufacturing process. And our last bus order is, we're still waiting on 4 buses from a previous order 18 months ago. So, yeah, it takes a while.
Is there any forecasting with that as well, since we are looking like a year or two out anyways with things like the tariffs and the increased cost for the raw materials that they're gonna have to source?
I was just going to
Are you
say,
guys-
Director Sung, is that's what the cost is now, and
Yeah.
so if we
Right.
delay, there are definitely going to be more costs. So, yes, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, we have quotes that are good for 30 days. And so the quote that we received was April 23rd. And so, and then our next board meeting is May 28th. And in speaking with at least Shetkey Sales and Service, the Thomas buses, they said that the current price right now will protect us from any tariffs, and that there could be, if we delay it, there could be some tariffs.
So just to clarify, these are replacing buses that have aged out of our existing fleet.
Yes.
And so this is just kind of a one-to-one replacement. We have an option to be able to approve this tonight, just to be able to replace the buses that we have, and then have the ability to go back and look at all of the details for future purchases, and put that out there, looking at, believe me, that when I buy a car, I want to have air conditioning in my car. I get it, like why we want this. But we've also done quite a bit when we looked at boundaries to do as many boundaries and looking at where our population lives to be as close as possible so we can have as many students walking and or have the shortest amount of commute to their schools as possible. Also expanding the programs that we have at our schools, and so there's less travel throughout the district. And that was kind of a priority when we did our boundaries a couple of years ago. And so I think that there's a lot of wants that we have. I think that we need to look at how many days do we have above a certain, how many current, have we had where students haven't ridden because of the temperature being too high. I mean, those are all things that we should look at and see what percentage of our population and as different pieces of information. So, but this could be a vote to just replace what we have. And then we can continue to look at kind of what we're looking at going forward. I'm hearing that as a possibility.
Yeah, we could look into it for our purchase for next school year. That would, we'd come to the board and with a purchase order, and we could have 2 options. This is what it costs without AC, and this is what it costs with AC.
And I know you mentioned that that we could possibly absorb that cost by purchasing them now. How would that impact your budget as the transportation department?
So the transportation vehicle fund that money is earmarked solely for school buses. It can't be used for anything else. So when we're purchasing buses, we see what our balance is and what our upcoming purchase cost is gonna be. I mean, we've got these 4 buses that we're hoping to have delivery in June or July, and at that point, we will pay for those 4 buses. It will reduce our transportation vehicle fund balance, but we have a buffer in there where we haven't spent right up to the penny. So, we do have like $100,000 buffer in there.
I see.
Right now.
So taking on that $60,000 would put a dent in that for sure, but it's not to the point where it would impact the ability of our purchasing
Yeah,
on those
correct.
4 at least.
Correct, and then in August, we get another apportionment from our depreciation that will fund that for our future purchase.
And what's the longevity of a bus that, like, the ones that we're purchasing now, what are we expecting the lifespan to be of those?
Our buses have been lasting 20 years. The depreciation is a 13-year depreciation schedule. So after 13 years, we're no longer getting an annual depreciation fee back to us, which is like the reimbursement for the initial purchase. So we can't, with the transportation vehicle fund, we can't replace everything as quickly as it comes off of depreciation. The school district has to kick in more money if we wanted to do that. But right now, we've been able to purchase anywhere between 6 to 10 a year.
And if we looked at the estimated climate change that we're going to be seeing over the next 13 to 20 years, if we're looking at that longevity of having these buses, how much of a difference that's going to be in 15 years when we're still using these buses and they don't have AC, and now we have much higher temperatures for longer periods of time that are eating into our the summer is lasting longer and it's starting earlier and those types of things. That's obviously going to impact some of our decisions later on, but how great would that be if have we taken that into consideration at all? I know it's a little weird question, but.
I can't say that we have taken that into consideration yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I do have one question, and I recognize there was no AC on the buses, and that was part of my question, but is there another way to cool them? Meaning, can we put in a fan on the windows to cool them down before people get onto them? Is there a way to make them like naturally cooler without using air conditioning? Because air conditioning is bad for the environment, right? We get told that we shouldn't be using it all the time. So is there another natural way to cool them? Have we investigated that?
I mean, the driver area has a couple of fans, which
Yes.
help also when there's condensation in the winter and defrosting. But inside the bus, no. I mean, each window gets
Yeah.
lowered, and then we have our emergency hatches that get vented
Right.
as well, and that's the way that we do it currently.
Okay.
I mean, the majority of our transportation in the morning is really early, and
Yeah,
so,
it is.
yeah, there's that.
The other piece I just was thinking is it would be back to the getting you the forecast piece. As part of that, I'm thinking of a presentation. We've done this before for the board, so you can see our fleet. So where are we in terms of replacing and how many buses, which buses? Recall, Mr. Dennison, we've done that. I think that could be a part of what I'm kind of suggesting for the board to consider, because I think that will put it all together. And it's saying, so what other things can we do? But how old the buses are important, so we keep our routes going. Those routes are important.
Do you know if you'd be able to ask them if we wanted to pay more after the fact to change the order slightly to add the air conditioning at a later date, even though we've already signed the contract? Is that something that they might be open to?
It depends on where they're at in the manufacturing process, but usually, they build the chassis first, and at that point, they're still able to add certain options later. So I do imagine that, yeah, we can alter purchases, because it takes so long for them to build them. So
Yeah.
we're reserving our spot in the line.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be like completely out of possibility to possibly do that if we need to. So if the board decides to change that, then we can possibly.
It's possible, yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to, vote this down or something, and then that ends up delaying our getting the bus, and then, or the, price goes up because things change in a month or whatever. So I definitely don't want to do that. I do have a couple of other questions. I don't know if any of the board members have some. I know I'd spoken to you a little bit earlier on about the removing the white painted roofs on the buses, that it mentioned it in the order or what have you. Is that something that we can change without it being, I would imagine, because as far as I could tell, there was no cost to it. So I would imagine we could just change that without it being a major issue here.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
could be changed very easily. Yeah.
And just so that people know, the reason I was asking about that is apparently, according to studies, it decreases the temperature in the buses by up to about 10 to 12%, somewhere in there. And so it would benefit us to have those white painted roofs. I don't know that we can do it on any of the other buses that we already have, but going forward, it might be beneficial. I just didn't know why we had removed it, or if it was something that they put on there for some reason or what have you.
Yeah, the purchases have a lot of line items. That was it's a district discretionary
Yeah.
thing where it can be added or removed. In this case, it was removed, but it can very easily be added back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all my questions. I appreciate it.
Okay.
My only other comment is, I had issue with saying that we're in a budget crisis. I actually think through the leadership, we've done a really good job of avoiding crisis, and we're doing quite well. But as a state, I could see that, but I would not say that we are in a crisis.
Yeah, I didn't mean it that we are. I'm just talking overall. We're
Yes.
having issues with money coming in.
Efficiency.
We would always love to have more.
Yes.
Great. Seeing no further comments, we have a motion on the floor for approval of 9.07, transportation school bus purchase orders. That has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 9.09, network cabling capacity improvement, phase 1, change order number 6.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
All right. Secretary Vela, would we be able to have the IT?
Absolutely. I
department
think
come
Mr.
up?
Olson, you're,
Thank you.
Cal?
President Margell, Vice President Cook, esteemed members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to speak again. I know I do this every time. Every time we have something that comes up with IT where we're spending money, I just like to highlight the fact that even though we're spending a large amount of money, a lot of that is not going to be out of our pocket, but out of the federal government's pocket with the, sorry, remind me of that.
Yeah, the
E-rate
E-rate
funding.
program.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I just wanted to give you a chance to kind of speak to that a little bit so that we can make sure that everyone is aware of how much additional work you're doing to make sure that we're spending as little as possible to get as much as we can.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Just to remind everyone, 80% through the federal E-rate program, up to 80% reimbursement with our district if we jump through all the right hoops, and we typically do a really good job of doing that. These change orders would be out of our pocket, but we try to minimize them as much as possible. In some cases, we kind of trade work back and forth, so there's no cost. In other cases, we hope to, in the future, have change orders that actually come back and give us money back. So you're seeing the ones right now that are costing money, but hopefully in the big scheme of the project, it's a small percentage.
And it looks like the revised amount is fairly small. It doesn't look like we're changing a whole lot with all of these different changes, and this one is roughly about $6,700. Is that right?
Yep, you were exactly right. And the point of this one is that the cabling length would have just been over spec. We just physically, the limitations is, as you know, it's 320. What's the right number, right?
Yeah.
A little bit over 300 feet, right?
Yeah.
For the standard for category 6A cabling. And
Yeah.
when schools were designed back in the day, you didn't necessarily think you're going to have access points in gyms and some places that are really far away. So as you're adding cabling, sometimes you have to add another distribution point to be able to
Yeah.
stay underneath the
Or a repeater
spec
or
of the
what have
cable.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. And so all we're voting for right now is just that we're changing it by 6,700 on a total contract of 2.7 million.
Correct.
So it's obviously not a huge change, but I just wanted to highlight your guys' work in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if I may, just wanted to point out that the E-rate is also a federal conversation. It's happening today. So as we think about our forecasts and budget, we need to be planning for any changes in that. I'll keep the board appraised of what is happening there because it's all part of that conversation.
Do we know if we get this locked in, so to say, I mean, obviously the $6,700 isn't that big of a deal, but if we get this locked in, how can it be impacted by things that affect E-rate going forward? Or is this, once we get it locked in, we're good to go?
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to say never.
Yeah.
Because, right, but I think all the contracts that we currently have in place that we got funding commitment decision letters from seem pretty much locked in, right? So that would include all the secondary schools cabling. We also have contracts locked in, hopefully soon, on cabling of an additional 9 elementary schools, I believe it is. 9 or 10 elementary schools. So we're still waiting for this year's commitment decision letters for our Category 2 funds. We've received some already for our Category 1 funds. So the approvals are coming in. It's kind of like just every time we get one, we celebrate.
And one other question on that. I know we talked previously about like a secondary internet service provider due to the fact that we've had a few times where internet has gone out and it's caused, outages across the district and that sort of stuff. Are we still working on that? Have we made any progress?
Yeah, so in the E-rate world, we like to point out to them that we have a secondary internet connection for added capacity. We need the added capacity, and so we have 2 internet connections currently for those reasons. And then as far as connecting our schools together so we can use that internet connection, there are some upcoming work that I would like to bring before you guys in time, trying to figure out exactly the best time to do that. But we're talking right now with different regional providers. Easy Fiber is breaking ground in the Kent area right now, and so we're talking with them about would there be some synergies we could do stuff with them. We're talking with Zayo, we're talking with Wave, we're talking with FatBeam, a lot of different just regional providers to say when is the best time to think about potentially doing a dark fiber build out or some other type of network for long term, right? While we have E-rate funds, while it's a viable program, trying to take as much advantage of it as we can.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense. Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
There's a motion on the floor for approval of item 9.09, network cabling capacity improvement phase 1, change order number 6. The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.11, resolution number 1694, special education out of endorsement reporting.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 9.11, resolution number 1694, special education out of endorsement reporting. We're now open for discussion.
So I had a couple of questions on this because I was looking at both this one and also the next one, which these are
912.
related, 912, yeah.
They're both out of endorsement.
Yeah, and so in this one, it says that we have no teachers that are out of endorsement or what have you on that front. But then I looked at the next one, and it talks about us having 2 identified teachers that are currently teaching special education that do not have their endorsement. So I was just wondering what the discrepancy is there, and if you could help explain that.
Yeah, so I'll have Ms. Frazier come on up. This is a process that we do each year. Out of endorsement, whether it's either in a specialized area like special education or a subject area potentially in high school, so. Ms.
Yeah, I
Frazier.
assume it's just my not understanding, so thank you.
Yes, no problem. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry. 9.11 is specifically for a special education teacher that is endorsed in special education, but has a student assigned to them that's in their classroom, either coded incorrectly in the CEDARs that needs to be fixed or has been attached to the classroom, and they're still waiting to finalize that IEP and get the sign off. Once it's showing out of endorsement, it will show out of endorsement, even if we correct it on our end.
I see. So the discrepancy there is just a matter of like, it's just not showing up in this particular setup, but it doesn't make a difference for us as far as that goes, is that right?
Correct. We work with our data services team to correct it in CEDARS if they aren't already aware of it. This is a requirement by OSPI for the educator equity tool to provide this, this resolution by the board, and then we move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser.
Seeing no further comments, there is a motion on the floor for approval of 9.11, Resolution 1694, Special Education Out of Endorsement Reporting. The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.12, resolution number 1695, out of endorsement waivers.
Second?
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 9.12, resolution number 1695, out of endorsement waivers. We are now open for discussion.
That was all my questions, so thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, a motion's been made for approval of 9.12, resolution 1695, out of endorsement waivers. The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. There was no final communication from the audience, as that was taken care of in the earlier section. We now move to our board reports. Director Gregory.
I just want to remind everyone that our high schools are putting on several productions. So to highlight, you can still attend Little Shop of Horrors. It actually opens tomorrow night at Kent Lake. It goes this weekend, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the following weekend, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So this weekend, it's just till Saturday, and the following. And then also, Kent Meridian High School is putting on Macbeth this coming Friday and Saturday. So tickets are available at, you can get them at the door, or you can go to gofan.com to purchase your tickets. So I hope to see people out at the place.
Nice. Thank you, Director Gregory. Director Song?
Just want to share just a couple highlights. Wanting to echo the superintendent's report, had a great time at the Kent Educators of Colors Network with the art contest. It was really nice to see a lot of the artistic expressions and the talents that exist just here within the Kent School District. Also want to shout out, acknowledge Millennium Elementary for their amazing presentation and showcase for their international and cultural event that I had the pleasure of attending also with Superintendent Vela. And then, yeah, again, yesterday's chat with the superintendent went well. I think we had a pretty good turnout in terms of where we are for the end of the year and having had multiple of these. And then, again, shout out and thank you to President Margell for answering some of the questions from the audiences. It seemed like we did a pretty good job. People left happy. So I think these are great, and hopefully we can continue seeing more of these next year.
Thank you, Director Song. Director Clark?
Pass.
Vice President Cook?
All right. I have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So I know Superintendent Vela had brought up Dr. Windmill over at Kent Meridian. And one of the things that she is doing is the We Are America program, which is something they've set up to have the students in the multilingual program publish their experiences. And so it's a really great program. I was able to go and visit them last year and see what the students came up with. And it's just very empowering for them and just absolutely touching for anyone that was able to get out there and see it. It's going to be done this upcoming June 10th on or at 11 a.m. So it's in the middle of the day. I plan on going, so I'll report back. But I just wanted to highlight that that's a great program, and I really enjoy getting to see what our students are coming up with. And at least last year, it was all stories on our students that have recently immigrated. And so they were talking to what it meant to them and how they came to Kent and what their experiences were. And some of it was heartbreaking, some of it was joyous. There was just kind of the whole gamut. And so I'd really suggest if anyone gets a chance to take a look at that, because it's really great. I also wanted to say I enjoyed the superintendent's chat last night. I apologize for everyone there that I had to take off because I had to go pick up my kids right after. So I kind of bolted as soon as the meeting was done. But I really enjoyed hearing from our community and seeing what they had to say. It was really good that we had such a turnout there. I wanted to also highlight that this month, month of May, is Military Appreciation Month. And so if you know any military members, go out there and tell them thanks. And again, this is Military Appreciation Month. That isn't veterans. So if you keep that in mind, just it's active duty people and everyone that's actively working towards that. And then I also wanted to highlight the fact that we have 3 candidates for both District 4 and District 5. I wanted to thank our community members that have decided to step up and put themselves out there to support our school district. It's so important that we have a lively democratic process, that we have people choosing to get out there and help do this work. It was a little scary at first because the first few days we had 0 people that signed up, and I was a little concerned that we were going to end up having to appoint in December, 2 new board members or possibly the same board member if we chose to. But that was really scary to me. I was worried that we might have to do that. But I'm really glad to see that we have people that are willing to step up and put their efforts in to make this place the best place that it can be. So thank you to all of them. Other than that, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Excited about just everything that's happening. Again, just want to keep our focus on our students and what our students are doing. I had the opportunity to see Hairspray 5 times, actually, at Kent Ridge High School. They had 10 different performances, and it is fantastic. The talent that when you set high bars, that our students continue to meet and exceed. It was just amazing, and a great story about breaking barriers and what one voice can do. And so just, I think, a great message for all of us. Thank you again for the transparency and authenticity that we got at the community chat for both Superintendent Vela and Deputy Superintendent Behringer. I believe that we've had 4 or 5 of these this year, and appreciate the community that comes out and participates, because we can't have a chat without our community. And so the conversation is always lively, and appreciate that. I had an opportunity, I know we've talked a lot about football at Mill Creek, the football field, and I got to go watch a middle school football game at Mill Creek, Northwood versus Mill Creek. Fantastic game. So many of the community and the students came out, and just the work that goes into it. Love seeing the teamwork. And just the camaraderie on the field and the lessons that are learned that go way beyond the football field into life. And so thank you for, again, the people cheering on the side, and the parents that get their kids back and forth, and our coaches that are out there, and the students really that are cheering for their fellow players. I want to give a shout out to Kent Ridge Judo. For the 16th year in a row, they won state championship. And so I think that we can start saying this is maybe even a dynasty at 16 years. That's quite a number of years. So fantastic job on that for both girls and boys that participate in that judo program. Looking forward to graduation's coming up here soon, and just congratulating and spending a moment with each student as they get celebrated for all of those years, all of those homework assignments, all of those late nights, all of those projects that got them that diploma, and all of the teachers and parents and community that help support them along the way. So looking forward to those graduations coming up here soon. It is 7:55. I want to say thank you again to our students. You are the reason we are here, and I hope that we always continue to make you the focus of everything that we speak about. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.